Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fantasy Happy Hour, Week 5. Matt Harmon, Brad Evans, talking about fantasy, talking about Week 5. Brad, all right, man, got a Thursday night game. Do you think that this is when people will begin to complain about Thursday night football again? This one doesn't look as beautiful as prior Thursday night games. I mean, we've had really two kick-ass games here with the Jets and Browns, obviously, for the Baker Mayfield show.
Historic reasons.
Yes, historic reasons. I mean, for God's sakes, I even went to the liquor store across the street, popped a Bud Light, and swung that thing back for this. So yeah, it was a fun game. Obviously, Rams and Vikings was just totally unbelievable. But what about this one? Yeah, but this one, what do we think is going to come out of Patriots Colts?
Well, obviously, you want to start all of your New England Patriots in this game with maybe a couple of exceptions. One being Chris Hogan, just because he's so unreliable, and possibly as well Julian Edelman. It's his first game back off the PED suspension. A lot of unknowns there. I'm sensing a classic Edelman line of like 7 catches, 60 yards, and no touchdown. Yeah. So, clearly he's like a wide receiver 3 flex option in a PPR setting. But I think the real big storylines here are twofold. One, Sony Michelle. On my Twitter feed today at Yahoo Noise, I've been just getting hammered with questions about like Sony Michelle versus Joe Mixon, Sony Michelle versus James Conner, Sony Michelle versus Kerryon Johnson. I got Sony Michelle ranked RB7 this week. And I wagered on Bet Online. They had those threshold bets. And if he gets at least 101 rush yards tonight, it's like plus 200. So I think that's very doable against Colts defense, down Leonard, their best defender. Down 2 starting DBs in that backfield. I think it's going to be the Sony Michelle show. And then this is the night, damn it, that Josh Gordon finds the end zone. I got it at plus 160. It happens. You've got 2 DBs down, no Kenny Moore in that secondary, no Quincy Wilson as well. If he lines up against Nate Harrison or one of the backups that have been elevated, Gordon will find the end zone. And I know what you're saying, well, what did he do last week? Well, he did a whole lot on 22% of the snap share. I was pretty impressed, and he was this close to scoring on his first reception as a New England Patriot. So I'm all aboard the Josh Gordon bandwagon, as expected.
Shock. Yeah, I mean, we've got Brad so enthusiastically slamming on his computer here about Josh Gordon, which is not unexpected, of course. Well, here's my read with Gordon. And I don't know if if people have noticed this that have been following me on Twitter or whatever. My sister is playing fantasy football for the first year. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before too. I read one of her tweets on my YouTube segment from this week, and she's got Josh Gordon on her team. She's so tilted about Josh Gordon. She texted me at 6 a.m. Pacific. She lives on the East Coast, so she texted me at 6 a.m. Pacific. Goes, call me as soon as you can, as soon as you wake up. We need to talk Josh Gordon today. So the people are tilting about Josh Gordon for sure. Even my sister in her first year in fantasy football knows that owning Josh Gordon is an exhausting experience. I'm not playing Josh Gordon. My advice to her was I'm okay seeing it before I use him. Usually I don't think that, but I'm strictly talking from a usage perspective. If Gordon goes out tonight and has 3 catches for 40 yards or whatever, doesn't really do anything, but does play like 80% of the snaps, runs 35 routes or something, then I'm okay with using him next week. I'm not saying I need to see him blow up. I just need to see the usage there before I play him. But obviously I know this is your thing. You're going down with the ship on this one, and to that, I respect you. For the people out there, I am drinking Lagunitas IPA tonight.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. And of course, I don't have a beverage in front of me because I have a bottle of Don Julio 1942. I tweeted it out earlier this week. It's got my name on it. And if I were to crack that sucker, I'd be slurring my speech halfway through this segment. So it's in our best interest that I refrain until kickoff.
Yeah, so I'll do the drinking for us tonight at the happy hour. You're the designated, I don't know, fantasy.
I'll be the sober sister here.
Yeah. So whatever I say, ignore it. But let's take Brad seriously. But on to the point about tonight's game, we got first question to chat from Kenny from Facebook wants to know James White or Nyheim Hines for a flex play in PPR. I think both these guys are actually pretty interesting in this spot. Do you have a lean between them?
Yeah, you know what? Let me pull up my ranks right now because I think I had these guys. And again, we're ranking for half point PPR in Yahoo. That's our default setting now. I believe I got them back to back. I do. I have James White at 16 and Hines at 17. So that's how bullish I am on both of these guys. Just out of curiosity, BetOnline has got the over/under set on rush receive yards for James White tonight. It's at 62.5 on the prop bet to kind of give you an indication of where the bookies are setting particular lines with their algorithms. I think both these guys find the end zone. I think both are going to finish in that like 60 to 70 total yard range. And if you're at a full point PPR, I might give a slighter edge to Hines, just because I think the game script is going to go negative in a hurry for the Colts. I mean, they're 10.5-point dogs right now. That Hines could catch 9 or 10 balls in this contest, but I think they're interchangeable, honestly, Harmon. And I'm very confident both are going to finish top 20 this week.
Yeah, I really like both of them, obviously, especially in a PPR format. That's good news for both these guys. Hines, we saw get out there, and I mean, like Moss a guy, dude. Like Moss the Honey Badger against the Texans. That was awesome. I really like Nyheim Hines this week for the rest of the season, but right now I still think that James White is the more trustworthy guy of the two. He really hasn't been game script dependent so far this year. He's been involved. I mean, he leads the team in targets. Like, what the hell is that? I mean, that's one sign that you're running or that your offense is not operating at peak efficiency, one. And two, I just think that makes him like an every week play right now. Even though Sony Michelle's getting rolling, James White is still the most pivotal back right now in New England. But I think both these guys are good plays this week.
You're not concerned too much about Julian Edelman's return and those short field targets shifting to the side of Edelman. Yeah. At the expense of the James White.
I mean, I do not think that James White will be leading that team in targets much longer, put it that way. So, yeah, of course I think Julian Edelman is going to be soaking up some of that short to intermediate area of volume that White was getting. So, no, I mean, definitely that's going to happen. But I think that right now this backfield is so thin. We're used to sitting here saying, like, how do we pick between all these New England backs? And it was pretty much just Michelle and James White. And while they like Sony Michelle, obviously, they hammer him when he's on the field. I mean, he's not getting a lot of snaps, but he's getting 25 carries last week because when he's on the field, they're rolling him out there. But on the flip side of that, like when it's not Sony Michelle, it's James White, and there's just a lot of room there. I mean, even in an ultra positive game script for White last week, he was still out there as a featured piece.
Yeah, one last note here on James White. The Colts have allowed 29 receptions to the running back position. That ranks top 10 in terms of most surrendered in that category. So, again, whether you're looking at the paper matchup, if you're just using point-blank common sense, if you're a film junkie, everything points to James White and, to a certain extent, too, Nyheim Hines having top 20 efforts.
Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense. What's your read on Andrew Luck tonight? Obviously, the Colts 10.5-point dogs to open up. I mean, this number the total has been coming down on this one.
It opened at 51.5. It's now at 49.5, which is puzzling to me, quite honestly. I think it's going to go over. I've got this game 34-20, New England. I think they're going to work uninhibitedly in most areas of the field in this particular contest. Now, Andrew Luck, I will say this. He impressed me last week. He came out and said, I can make all the throws. He probably could have also shouted, I like beer, since that seems to be all the rage right now in the media. But Andrew Luck impressed me with a lot of those 15 to 20-yard throws last week. I mean, he was on point. They had velocity, a little mustard on him. It was impressive, but he doesn't have T.Y. Hilton. So he's got to go out there and do it with Zach Pascal and Chester Rogers and Ryan Grant and Eric Ebron because you don't have Jack Doyle and Hines as a check-down Charlie type. I ranked him at quarterback 16 this week, though I'm kind of convincing myself I'm going to move up a couple of spots, even ahead of, like, say, an Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't have a healthy wide receiver at this current moment in time. I think his most healthy wide receiver is Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the rookie who was a standout in the preseason because Devontae Adams is yet to practice. Geronimo Allison still in post-concussion protocol, and Randall Cobb is a coin flip of whether or not he's going to return. So it's kind of where I'm standing with Luck. Are you viewing him as a QB1 and 12-teamers this week, Harmon?
I mean, the QB position is so deep that I think you could even have him as QB14, and he's definitely still in that QB1 range. I think if you have Luck, you could play him this week. It does have that total that's coming down, but I think a lot of that has to do with the expectation that both T.Y. Hilton and Rob Gronkowski were going to be out. But it sounds like Gronk's going to go. And obviously, we've had people in the chat asking about Gronk. If you have Gronk, you play Gronk because what the hell else? Like, I'd love to know.
What else is there? It's a desolate landscape at tight end, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and actually just officially got the news alert literally right now as we're talking that Gronk is going to be active tonight. So that is officially official, as is Julian Edelman. He'll be active as well. So both those guys are going to be out there. But yeah, if you have Gronk, like you're playing Gronk, because what are you going to do? Throw CJ Uzoma out there? Give me a friggin' break.
Well, maybe, look, just speaking in hypotheticals, maybe a Vance Mcdonald.
No.
That's a possibility. I think Vance McDonald's going to have a nice game this week. He's gone up 60 yards in 3 consecutive, but the touchdown upside is so appealing for Gronk. We all get it. The biggest concern is he going to be full go Gronk or is he decoy Gronk?
Right.
Who knows?
Right. No, that's totally fair. I think, but back on Andrew Luck, though, I think he's a good enough play in this spot. I do think it has a shot to go over this total. I stayed away from this game because while I agree with you, I think the Patriots, they clear that 10.5 points. I still don't necessarily love to dive into a big gap there. I know our buddy Scott Pianowski is actually making that one of his official picks. I think he thinks that the Colts are going to cover that spread. I'm not confident in the Colts doing that, but I'm also not I just never feel confident taking that big of a gap with a favorite like New England, even though they are at home. It's a short week, blah, blah, blah. But nevertheless, I think Luck is a good enough play in this spot. The Patriots right now just aren't really doing anything all that well defensively. They have some decent personnel, in the secondary, but it hasn't really come to fruition just yet. Obviously, they just blasted the Dolphins, but I don't really take that too seriously. So,
yeah, just one little note. According to Sports Insights, which tracks public ticket spread wagers, 70% of the public is right now, in terms of just spread tickets, on the New England Patriots. That is usually the threshold, and when you hit 70%, where it's wise then to fade the majority. Though I'm seeing the line vary anywhere from 10 to 12 right now, according to Sports Insight. So the line is all over the map. What my suggestion would be is buy the half a point if it's a 10.5, get it down to 10. Have that safety net there in case it is a push, and you don't get screwed by the hook.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think it's interesting, just this game in general. There's been a couple people asking in the chat. I've had people ask this all week in my mentions, in the fantasy mentions, like, which Colts receiver are you playing? None. I'm not. I know that definitely if you're in a super deep league, I guess you could think about Ryan Grant or whatever. But to me, if you're in a standard 10 to 12 team league, PPR, half PPR, you've got to have a better option than one of these guys. We just don't know where the targets are going to go, and I think honestly, with the way that Luck has played in the majority of the season, and I'm not saying like him individually, but the way that the plays are being called, the emphasis on getting the ball out quickly, I think we could just see a lot of work for Hines, for Eric Ebron. I mean, a reliable starter at tight end at this point because of the slate. I'm not messing around with any of these Colts receivers.
Well, one guy I do like, and one guy I picked up because I'm in a 16-team league with a couple of flexes, and you do have bye weeks in play here with Chicago and Tampa Bay off. So desperate times call for desperate measures. I picked up Zach Pascal off of waivers, and he saw double-digit targets last week. He's a big-bodied target, 6'2", 220 pounds. They like him in the red zone. They've made that very clear. And some of the commentary the coaching staff has put out there this week, Andrew Luck as well. So just because the touchdown upside, may not come until late in the fourth quarter, but garbage time still counts, Harmon. I'm actually trotting Pascal out there and trying to ride the coattails of the recency bias from last week.
To that, I tip my cap and say good luck to you.
I probably need it.
Before we move off this game, let's hit this question in the chat that I think that has to do with one player from tonight's game, your boy Josh Gordon. What do you think about a Josh Gordon for Dalvin Cook swap? Which side of that? Obviously we haven't seen too much from Josh Gordon yet. Dalvin Cook, the people are definitely tilting about Dalvin Cook. Where do you stand on that? Which one would you rather have the rest of the way?
Well, I don't like players with soft tissue issues. We're seeing it with Leonard Fournette, how he's bogged down. What I want Minnesota to do is just shut Cook down for a couple of weeks, get him back to 100%, and then unleash him. Typically, I always err on the side of volume here, and I would still lean that direction with Cook. He's a player that still forced a missed tackle 28% of the time, despite the limitations with the hammy. That's top 3 in the league. Mm-hmm. He's got a sizable role in the pass game. I love the immense upside of Josh Gordon. But with Edelman back, Gronk active tonight. Hopefully he's going to be healthy moving forward. Still do have Chris Hogan there. A lot of mouths to feed. And once Cook is up to speed and confident in his hamstring remaining intact, he's going to get fed. So I would stand pat with Dalvin Cook and hold off on acquiring Josh Gordon.
I think that works for me. So moral of the story, Brad thinks he can start Josh Gordon. I'm going to play this one a little bit more conservative. And for Dalvin Cook, man, I'm just kind of fingers crossed that they realize that this matchup with the Eagles, which I want to talk about next, they keep their fingers crossed. And I keep my fingers crossed, and that they just rest him for this week, because really how you attack the Eagles' defense is through the air, where Jalen Mills has been a liability at left corner. Ronald Darby is a ball hawk, but he does give up big plays. Rodney McLeod has missed some time. Even though they have a ferocious front, this is a team that has been picked on through the air. Now, this game opened up at a 44.5 over-under, and I immediately bet that. So I hammered the over on that one. It's already up now to 46.5 in spots. I like this game to be much more high scoring than that one. What do you think?
I'm in complete agreement with you, and I'm with you on Dalvin Cook. You absolutely cannot play him this week if you have a suitable alternative against that front line, which is ferocious, giving up 2.7 yards per carry. Brandon Graham, according to Pro Football Focus, number 1 by a wide margin in run stop percentage. So for me, I'm with you on the over. So many inadequacies in that secondary with Minnesota right now, uncharacteristically so. I mean, Trey Waynes in particular, he's giving up close to a perfect passer rating to his assignments thus far. Xavier Rhodes is out of sorts, compared to years past. Just not really getting it done. Carson Wentz and Alshon Jeffrey going to hook up early and often. Of course, Zach Ertz is going to be heavily involved. Diggs and Thielen. I think Kirk Cousins goes over 300 yards. I think it's probably 2 to 3 touchdown game for him. I think Wentz will come close to matching Cousins' output. So, this is going to be a shootout affair, a sneaky shootout, if you will. And I think your assessment of breaking out the sledgehammer, going Peter Gabriel on it, and taking the over was the right call, Harmon. I'm with you.
Yeah, immediately. I knew that would be my most confident one of the week. It was much like the Falcons and Bengals last week, even though that opened up at a much higher total. I was like, that's still not close enough. That was like 48, 49. And then by the end of the week, I think it was like 53. So this is similar. I think we're going to see this Minnesota Eagles total rise. And I like a lot of players in this spot. And you mentioned Trey Waynes, too. He's not even healthy. He might miss this game. Obviously, Everson Griffin is away for personal reasons. This is just not the Minnesota defense of old. And obviously, we're seeing a lot of issues on the Eagles side. So I think you come down on the side of trying to get some of your receivers from obviously the Vikings, but also the Eagles, too. I think Alshon Jeffrey's got a secure role. I know Nelson Aguilar hasn't popped in the box score recently, but the volume is still there. I think you can throw him out there. So I like this game overall. I actually want to move to another one, too, that I'm a little bit more hesitant, but still confident in the over on this one. Jacksonville, Kansas City, 49, I think it's just a 49-point total where I've seen it. I kind of like the over in that one, too. Again, I'm not as confident because whenever Jacksonville's defense is involved, you got to be a little worried. But, we got some questions about Josh Gordon or D.D. Westbrook, Josh Gordon or Keelan Cole. I think I like Westbrook and Cole in this spot a lot because obviously the Chiefs defense is #bad.
That's putting it kindly. I like D.D. quite a bit. And this is not, I'm not raking Keelan Cole over the coals. I mean, that's why that popped in my mind there for a minute. But I think D.D. Westbrook, based on where he's going to line up, he's seeing predominantly most of his action out of the slot. Got to line up against Kendal Fuller, who's the primary slot DB for the Chiefs. He's given up a 101.8 passer rating, 68% catch rate. I got D.D. down he was in my Fantasy Flames column this week, 5 for 80 and a touch. But Keelan could easily match that. I think Blake Bortles, it's been a real bizarre ebb and flow for him. The pattern goes like 100-yard game, 300-yard game, 100-yard game, 300-yard game. Now you would say, it's going to be a 100-yard game. I think he goes over 300 again this week with a couple of touchdowns. Great buy in Yahoo DFS, by the way, is Blake Bortles. He's only like $26. Highly affordable. Nice little stack with D.D. at 18. I think Keelan is like 19 or 20. I would play D.D. Westbrook and Keelan Cole slightly ahead of Josh Gordon tonight, just knowing that I think there was more concrete evidence to support Cole and Westbrook compared to the guessing game that is Gordon.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned that Chiefs defense and the production that I think Westbrook especially is in line for. But obviously I really like Keelan Cole too. I think both these guys are in a good spot. Look, if you're desperate, Dante Moncrief does lead the team in air yards. Just saying.
Yeah, true.
There's going to be a big play guy in this offense. It's probably, Moncrief is just likely as any of them. That Chiefs defense is number 2 in air yards allowed to wide receivers this season and is number 1 in yards after the catch allowed to allowed this season. So both these guys are in a great spot. D.D. Westbrook leads the team with 172 yards after the catch. Kendal Fuller, as you mentioned, on his strict slot coverage snaps alone, where he's supposed to be really great, 94.6 pass rating allowed per PFF. I mean, it's just so great. And Bortles, too. I like Bortles as a streamer and as a DFS play. If you look at his history in games without Leonard Fournette, and this is all going to be in my weekly column that'll come out tomorrow morning, late tonight, tomorrow morning, where I look at every single game, the lines, and just a matchup. Bortles has averaged almost 2 yards more per attempt in the 5 games that Leonard Fournette has missed over the last 2 seasons. He has a 65% completion rate without Leonard Fournette in the lineup, 1.27 touchdowns to 1 interception in games with Fournette, and without him, 1.8 touchdowns per game and under an interception. So big difference. And I don't think it's not like that's, I don't know what that means. Maybe it's just a splits happen type of thing, but I think the team opens up the passing game a little bit more without Fournette. And that could really push this game into the over because I still think the Chiefs' offense is good enough to get over on this Jacksonville defense. Do you have, in terms of the spread, do you have a favorite here? It's the Chiefs -3 right now. What do you think of? Who do you think just straight wins this game?
Well, I think Kansas City's going to take it. I mean, it's a complete toss. It's going to be one of those final possession sort of games in my estimation. And this is the real test for Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, we largely believe he's matchup proof, but this makes it ironclad. If he goes out there and he throws for 270 and a couple of touchdowns, forget about it. I mean, he's going to be the QB 101s this year. And I don't think he's going to have a whole lot of competition in that area, quite frankly, if he could pull this off against Jalen Ramsey and Boye in the secondary. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously reservations with the Chiefs because of the defensive shortcomings. When are they going to crop up? Now, if Vance Joseph would have actually ran the damn ball in the second half, the Royce Freeman downhill, particularly on that second-to-last possession that the Broncos had, the Broncos put an L in the right column of the Kansas City Chiefs. It's that simple. But, of course, Bill Musgrave got too cute with it, putting Philip Lindsay in motion. Case Keenum had a golden opportunity on a streak route up the right sideline to Marius Thomas and overshot him. The Broncos just shot themselves in the foot. They went full Plaxico on it the entire night, again and again. So, for me, there are vulnerabilities there, but it's so tough at Arrowhead. And I think the home field advantage will work to the side of KC, and that's why I'll take them, I think, by a field goal. I think that's the appropriate spread.
Yeah, I had the Chiefs. I had triple digits on the Chiefs on Monday night, so I was very happy with that shitty play calling in the. Oh, great! Now,
you got it though at 3.5 then.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I got it earlier in the week at 4.5.
Yeah.
So we both won.
High five.
I
literally took it that day. My girlfriend had to come by the office, and I had to give her the keys to my apartment or whatever. And she's like, "Are you betting on the game tonight or anything?" And I was like, "Nah, I don't think so. I don't know if I have a real good read or whatever." Then I got back to my desk. I looked at it one more time. I was like, whatever. Let's do it. Let's have some fun. Yeah, let's have some fun. Arnold from YouTube thinks that Kansas City gets their first loss this week. He calls it a trap game. I don't know that it's necessarily a trap game, but it is certainly.
Oh, you want to hear my trap game of the week, Harmon?
Yes, I do.
Buffalo wins. They beat the Tennessee Titans at home. That's the trap game of the week.
Oh, no. Why? Okay, why? Why would you say something like that?
Because I have a lack of faith in the Tennessee Titans offense now. They did make strides last week. Corey Davis and his heroics late, and Marcus Mariota's getting healthy. He's not quite 100%. Still having difficulties running the football right now. And that's the one area where you can exploit Buffalo's in the trenches. But if Tennessee is not efficient in that particular category, they're going to struggle vertically. I think Tre'Davious White is a stud. He's only given up a 58 catch percentage, 80 passer rate to his assignments. And there's just so much heavy action on Tennessee. Everybody's leaning, the Buffalo Bills are who we thought they were. They're this crestfallen, disgusting, gut-wrenching to watch team. But, Tennessee has had its issues defending the pass at times this year. I think this game is going to be just a rock'em sock'em robot, low-scoring affair, kind of back alley brawl where it's going to finish like 12-10 Buffalo. I just think people are, everybody's on that bandwagon with Tennessee, and I love to fade the majority narrative, and I think the Bills somehow sneak a victory.
I don't know, man.
Look, it doesn't make any sense, but nothing in the NFL does on a week-to-week basis, typically.
That's very true. I was really high on the Tennessee Titans coming into the year, so I think that informs my opinion of them right now. I think that what we saw last week was a turning of the corner there for the Tennessee Titans, and the offense especially. And look, Corey Davis, I think, is a transformative type figure in this offense. Right now, he's getting elite wide receiver 1 usage. Red
32% target share.
32% of the targets, 42% of the air yards. I mean, everything is in line there for Corey Davis to keep it going. And this is why you always trust volume. And I'm gonna get your question. I'm gonna get a question for you on this as soon as I wrap up my point on how bad Buffalo is too. Buffalo is 32nd in yards per drive, 31st in points per drive, and 32 in drive success rate. I don't know if everybody is aware of this. There are only 32 teams in the NFL, so that is last, second to last, and last. So
if we were open like the Sun Belt, the MAC, the CFL, they would still probably be at the bottom of the barrel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe this is finally where Josh Allen has some success in the Mountain West. Maybe this offense could do well in that conference. Unfortunately, yeah, it just doesn't set up. I can't get with you on that one, but I do want to I posted a poll this week on the Yahoo Fantasy handle. Who would you rather have rest of the season, Corey Davis or Calvin Ridley?
Corey Davis for me. Calvin Ridley's going to come crashing back down to earth. I mean, the level of production is so unsustainable in terms of fantasy points per opportunity and his target share. And he's making the most of, one-on-one situations because he is an elite route runner. I thought he would struggle with press coverage when he entered the league because he's just not the strongest guy. He's not a guy that's going to be repping a whole lot on the bench. But he's such a savvy route runner with that elite speed. He's been able to gain separation in some of those critical red zone situations, much to the chagrin, me included, as a Julio Jones owner. But, yeah, give me the volume of Corey Davis all day long. The touchdowns are coming. They started last week. Maybe gets another one this week, though I think it's more of a long shot. But moving forward, let's just look at the schedule here, Harmon. You get Baltimore for Tennessee in Week 6. That'll be difficult with Jimmy Smith back on the field against an underachieving, looks like, LA Chargers team in England after that. Then the bye week, then Dallas, New England. I mean, there's some nice matchups there. The one thing I do worry about, though, with Corey Davis, Jacksonville, Week 1 of the fantasy playoffs. That's tough to swallow.
Yeah, that sucks. It's pretty far ahead. So, but the crazy thing you mentioned about Julio Jones, man, he's on pace for 2,000 yards, literally on pace to break a record. I mean, I know he hasn't scored yet, but Julio Jones is literally the only player in the NFL that could be on pace for a 2,000-yard season, and people would still be upset because of the touchdowns.
Odell Beckham hasn't scored yet.
Yeah,
I mean.
That's true.
There's some just bizarre things going on out there in the league. I mean, Carlos Hyde has a tremendous amount of value. Who would have thunk that? It's just there's weird stuff going on.
I love it,
but
man.
That's why we love it. We love the unpredictability.
I love the weird. The weird is where I love to be with the NFL. Yeah, I'm with you though. Corey Davis, I think, is a must start every week at this point, just because of that volume from your wide receiver 3 spot. And if this offense continues to get better, continues to ascend, then I think he can only become more efficient from there. Brad, let's take a couple questions, unless you've got some blistering hot takes before we jump out of here.
No, not yet.
A lot of people talking about Alex Collins in the chat. What are your thoughts on Alex Collins this week and going forward?
Well, he was DNP today, so he did not practice, which definitely is alarming. He's only seeing right around 49% of the opportunity share. John Harbaugh is, talking and waxing poetically about Buck Allen.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just bizarre, but he believes he's a player and an elite one at that.
What have I been telling you about these guys like Buck Allen, man? They're coaching catnip. they might honestly be not good, but coaches love them because they know what they're getting.
Like Garrett Blunt, Jamal Williams, your guy. He's another coaching catnip cat.
Dude, he's crushing it in points per pass block league.
I mean, Vance Joseph with Devontae Booker just seeing more snaps than Royce Freeman. I mean, there's just inexplicable, idiotic things. This is why I went on a Twitter tirade earlier this week. I went on an audio tirade. If you watch my show, The Fantasy Football Hour, I almost had to be restrained by my co-host because I was so worked up about this circle of coaching morons. It's a flock of dodo birds right now. Yeah. Mike Mcleod, Adam Gase, throw them in there as well with Patricia and Vance Joseph and Bill Musgrave and Mike McCarthy, who's sneaky dumb, as I like to describe him. So it's inexplicable. It really is. But who were we talking about before? Because I now lost my train.
I don't know. Alex Collins.
Alex Collins. Well, here I propose to you this. Knowing that Vance Joseph came out today and said, hey, and his reasoning was just classic Vance Joseph. We need to get Royce Freeman more touches because he's really playing good football. That was his reasoning. Anybody with functional eyes, anybody who looks at even a single advanced statistic will tell you that Royce Freeman should be the king of this backfield. And again, it's no slight against Philip Lindsay. So I ask you the question, who would you rather have rest of the season? Royce Freeman, who may or may not get more touches, or Alex Collins?
That's tough, man.
That's a good dilemma.
It is a good dilemma. I'm going to say Alex Collins because I trust the offense more. I don't necessarily trust him all that much. You know, he's got fumbling issues. He has documented fumbling issues dating back to his time at Arkansas. Started to rear their head a little bit this year. They were an issue last season as well. And Buck Allen's not going away, but I also don't think in Denver that Philip Lindsay is going away, nor do I think Devontae Booker is going away. I mean, I love the people who still say, like, talent wins out, while we spend, 90% of the fantasy season whining on Twitter about these coaches who don't give the right players the ball, and then people still have the gall to say talent wins out. It's not because it shouldn't win out. It's because it doesn't win out, because these guys are, there's such a gap. I'm sorry, I'm on two tangents now.
No, go for it.
There's such a gap right now in the league between the Sean McVay tier up there with, I think John DeFilippo's up there too as a play caller. You can go down the list of the good offenses to the Mike McCoys of the world that you were mentioning. There's just, it's a massive gap right now, and it's showing up in fantasy leagues, whether you own Chiefs, Rams, Vikings, these teams, like the Andy Reid coaching tree. I mean, Andy Reid, I think, will go down as like a really historic figure in the NFL, especially over the next 15 years as his guys evolve from that tree. Sorry, side story, but, it is what it is. In terms of, I would take Alex Collins, because if I'm splitting up the pie of the Denver backfield or the Baltimore backfield, I think I like the way the pie is going to taste a little bit better in Baltimore with Joe Flacco playing well with John Brown and company.
Yeah, well, you know what direction I'm going. You said this before we got on air. I'm going to die on two hills. And right now, the sword is through the abdomen on Josh Gordon, and it may pull out a little bit here tonight, depending upon the outcome. But I'm feeling good about Royce. I think Vance Joseph has seen the light. The two runs that Freeman had on Monday night were spectacular. The two main ones. The one in which he cut across the grain, then cut upfield and dragged tacklers in the end zone was very impressive. But the second one, in which he bounced off two tacklers that were in position to wrap him up, and, they didn't, because he just bowled over both of them and pinballed off him for a 10-yard gain. That was special. And this is why he's top 4 in yards after contact per attempt and missed tackle percentage. And let's not forget, too, according to Fantasy Guru, he has the easiest remaining schedule for a running back in the league. There's Royce Freeman and Philip Lindsay.
Boom. I mean, I think Royce Freeman's good. They just think it might not matter.
It may not.
It might not matter. Just like it's definitely like Nick Chubb. It's probably the Browns' best back.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Now, here's a curiosity, and let me throw this question out. Let's say Hyde goes out this week, and I think this is a very likely outcome, quite honestly. It's like an 18-carry, 58-yard, no touchdown day, and then Nick Chubb, maybe on like 6-7 carries, goes for like 50 yards and a touchdown. Do things change? Does the scales, do they tip to the side of the rookie over Hyde entering next week.
Well, look, we have made it through this whole discussion, the little tangent we just took about the gap between coaching groups, and we somehow didn't mention among the bozos out there, Hugh Jackson. So trying to make a prediction on what should happen based on what's going to happen down there in Cleveland, good question. I mean, Hugh said this week that, Nick Chubb's going to have to start getting some, as in, I think, getting...
Yeah, well, we were talking about his love life.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about, like, getting carries.
I mean, maybe. If Hugh's really putting the guy on blast out there like that, like, come on, dude. But
it's a matchmaker. He's a regular Chuck Woolery, is that Hugh Jackson. So.
Yeah, if I want a wingman out there, I definitely want it to be Hugh. I mean, he sells things. So I actually maybe that's a better career path for Hugh, is like as the Hitch type of guy. Yeah. Like going out to bars with, jokers like me and trying to, oversell me, being like, oh, no, I think he's got some good qualities. He actually might be better at that than he is at being an NFL coach. But I don't know, man. But I would want to stash Nick Chubb to figure it out. I have to admit to you, Brad, in our Team Huevos league, I have been Team Raisins on the waiver wire this week. Did not bid enough for guys like Nick Chubb. Devin Funchess was out there, and I need the help, man, because I went studs and duds in that draft, and one of my studs, David Johnson, has been playing a bit more like a dud than a stud. So I needed the help this week, and it didn't really work out. Well,
maybe we should consummate a trade on this broadcast.
What do you want to do?
So you need a running back?
Dude, I need everything.
I'm pulling it up right now because I'm in a really good position, and I've got depth. Even though I'm 2-2, I think I'm like third in total points. So I would be – my bench isn't the greatest. So my running backs right now are Melvin Gordon, James White, Royce Freeman, Joe Mixon. So I'm loaded there. My wide receivers are Stephon Diggs, Demaryius Thomas, Will Fuller, and then I got just crap on the bench. I would be willing to entertain trading James White.
Can I give you, can I give you Deshaun Jackson?
No, you cannot give me Deshaun Jackson, but I could. Who are your receivers?
Oh, man. I mean, I'm pulling it up right now.
Because I could pair White with DT.
Okay.
For a wide receiver.
I've got Antonio Brown. Obviously, no.
Well, obviously he's unreachable.
Deshaun Jackson, D.D. Westbrook, Albert Wilson, Allen Robinson, Richard Matthews. It's not a good situation.
Well, your team blows, dude.
Dude, I know. Well, that was the thing. Like, this is why I should have, I bid, I think, $40 for Devin Funchess, and I should have just gone, I don't know why the hell he was out there. Like, what was going on there? I should have just gone 100% in. I don't think we're going to.
I do want to address your strategy with this draft because you went stars and scrubs, right? And I remember vividly in this draft, I was I love to play the bully in the room, and I sat on money too long. I spent exorbitantly on Melvin Gordon, and then I didn't spend any money because it's a 2-quarterback league, essentially, because we have a super flex. Yep. And I didn't pay hardly anything comparatively for Dak Prescott and Andy Dalton. And I have Josh Allen on my bench just for a rainy day. But I actually decided to wait, and I got some extraordinary deals because I got Will Fuller cheap. I got James White cheap. Joe Mixon was affordable, if I recall correctly. So I think this year, and what I've seen in many of the strategies that I've done stars and scrubs. Those teams are sucking the hind teat right now. But in leagues in which I drafted for depth, they have really cashed in for me so far this year.
Well, I mean, if you think about just the top level guys, it's a high risk, high reward strategy because the goal here is to get something that you can't get in a snake draft league. Like, there's no snake draft league where you could pair Antonio Brown and David Johnson. And especially in a Superflex league too, then I went, Cam Newton and Marcus Mariota, who I felt much better about, at the time than I do now. So it just is one of those things that if it doesn't work out, like if David Johnson's not playing like a difference-making RB1, you're banged. So I'm banged. It's over. Might as well have just burned the money that we had to start. So I'm screwed.
Well, when you get desperate and you need to trade Antonio Brown, I have the goods to deliver for you.
There we go. Let's just take a few more rapid-fire questions before we jump off here. Someone named Brandon from Facebook has sent in Luck or Blake Bortles about 10 times with different emojis every single time in the chat. So I feel like we owe him at least. Who do you like better this week, Andrew Luck or Blake Bortles?
I'm going with the BB gun. Cocked, locked, and loaded. It's Kansas City. Maximize your matchup.
Boom. I like that too. I think that's just going to be – I'm a little bit more confident that that's a higher scoring game than this one tonight, even though I know you like this game to go over the total.
I do like the over, but yeah, I'm with you there. I'm definitely more confident the Jacksonville-Kansas City game hikes over.
How do you feel about Deion Lewis or Mike Williams this week? I like that Oakland-LA game a lot.
And I kind of like Deion Lewis. And he's sneaky cheap in Yahoo DFS at $16. I actually have him flexed in a couple of lineups. Yeah, Mike Williams really disappointed me last week. He had a premium matchup there, didn't really deliver. I thought he'd find the end zone. I think he had, 1 or 2 catches? That's it.
One. Yep.
Yeah, it was one. That's a coin flip. Honestly, the higher floor and the safer play here is Deion, and that's probably the direction I lean because Mike Williams is so TD dependent.
Luckily, he does get a really good matchup here against the Oakland Raiders defense, who are allowing quite a lot of yards through the air. And the LA Chargers defense, if this is going to become a sneaky shootout, I tweeted this out this week. All 3 of the cornerbacks are allowing coverage passer ratings over 100 points per PFF. I think they're 3rd in yards per target allowed. Just a real mess there in the LA Chargers secondary. Obviously, they had tough matchups in the Rams and the Chiefs, missing Joey Bosa, but nevertheless, this group just hasn't been performing all that well. Could be a nice shootout there in LA. What do you think about Mark Ingram this week? Are you playing Mark Ingram if you haven't?
Let me tell you exactly where I got him ranked this particular week. I think it's right around RB21, RB22. Let's see. Officially, I have him at RB20, as a matter of fact. 1 spot ahead of LaShawn McCoy and 1 spot behind Marshawn Lynch. Yeah, I mean they're gonna utilize him in some capacity. Obviously it's not injury related with suspension. He met the team at the airport in New York last week. To hit the ground running. You saw that Sean Payton said we're gonna find a way to balance this out. And the bigger question here is, what kind of workload is Alvin Kamara going to get? I mean, he was seeing 77.9% of the opportunity share. 13.8% of that was on the ground. I think at least a handful of those carries are going to go to the side of Mark Ingram. But Ingram, I don't believe, is going to average 18 touches per game like we saw last week, due largely to the shortcomings of New Orleans' secondary. Yep. That's the bigger issue here. So, you kind of all put it in the stew, all these ingredients, stir it about for a couple of hours, and I'm looking at probably 13 touches, 60 yards, and a touchdown for Mark Ingram this week.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. You're probably a little bit more exuberant about him than I am. I think this is the Kamara show. It started to be more the Kamara show towards the end of last year, even down there in scoring position. Kamara has 15 targets in the red zone this year.
It's ridiculous.
It's wild. That's wild. I think that continues, too, because I think it's what works for the New Orleans Saints, so I think they keep on doing it. One other good question I want to hit on, and then we're going to jump out on this one, and this is another one of your children, Brad. Aaron Jones, Devonta Freeman, or Phillip Lindsay this week in a half-point PPR. This one comes in from Steven on Facebook.
Lindsay, if they were to utilize him properly in space, he should be getting 4 to 6 receptions per week to assist Case Keenum when he's under duress. And the fact that Lindsay in space, I mean, he's such a dynamic runner, and he's got elite speed, and he's really great with the football. He's very sure-handed. I don't understand why they're not using him in that capacity. But then against Bill Musgrave, 1 + 1 = 3. I'm going Aaron Jones. This has to be the week he gets 12 to 15 carries. I mean, the Lions are just annihilated routinely on the ground. They're giving up 6.1 yards per carry. Aaron Rodgers, we don't know what healthy wide receivers he's going to have to throw to. And the Lions are really good in terms of pass defense. They've allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points position. Big play, Darius Slay's got it done. I think there's going to be a lot of Aaron Jones left up the middle right. And I think he's going to be a wrecking ball. I think it's 80 yards at a minimum and a touchdown. I would not be shocked if he gets his first 100-yard game of the season, but it may only be on 12 carries because, again, Mike McCarthy's sneaky dumb.
Yeah, I think that Packers backfield does remain a committee because Jones is the best Jones is the best pure runner. Jamal Williams is the best pass protector, and Ty Montgomery has a great receiving resume. They don't really have an incentive to change things up. I don't think they do change things up. But I do. Aaron Jones is the number one for me of this group as well. Because, as you mentioned, the Lions are number one in yards per carry allowed to running backs this year. That receiving core in Green Bay could legitimately be three rookies on the all-team name: Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Jamon Moore, Equinemius St. Brown. That's all that's on the roster after Cobb, Adams, and Allison. Yeah. So we could legit be looking at those three as receivers on Sunday.
Well, we could be, and Brandon Funson brought this up to me on our podcast, The Fantasy Record, today, that this could actually really benefit Ty Montgomery in the pass game. You've been seeing Ty Montgomery get more involved in expanding his route tree. It's more than just wheel routes or short field slot action, on slants or hooks. I mean, he was running some posts even last week, so. And some corner routes as well. So I think he's a guy that could be more involved in that capacity, and he's the one that could really stand to benefit most, again, if Cobb and Allison and Devontae Adams are inactive.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense to me. And Jimmy Graham, I think, he has come off a touchdown. I hope
so. He's been killing me.
Yeah, he's coming off a touchdown last week, but I think we could see a nice outing for him here with all the receiver injuries in Green Bay. I just want to say before we jump off to whoever in the chat has continued to ask about Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, come on, man. What are you doing? What are you doing? It's 2018, dude. It's not 2015 anymore.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And the one thing I get really annoyed with when people just continuously cut and paste and repaste the same question over and over again, that is not going to necessitate one of us to actually answer it. In fact, when I get those in my chat log, when I do my Sunday morning chat, I ignore them. Don't piss me off. And that's you're flooding my feed.
You hear it. You heard it here from Brad Evans. He's saucy. He's feeling it. It's week 5, everybody. My IPA is done, so we're going to sign off here from the Fantasy Happy Hour. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, you can follow Brad on Twitter at Yahoo Noise. You can follow me on Twitter at MattHarmon_BYB. And you can follow Yahoo Fantasy at Yahoo Fantasy. And you can watch all of our content on YouTube. We're trying to build that YouTube page up. Brad, we need to get you doing some stuff on YouTube, but people that aren't me, we'll talk to you about that.
Shirtless Brad Evans takes. I think that's what's going to happen.
That's what the people.
That's what America demands, Matt Harmon. Really, the world, to be honest with you.
Well, I think if that goes up there and it outviews all the rest of my videos, I will. I'll be feeling some type of way. But for Brad, I'm Matt. Good luck this week, and we'll see you all later.
Josh Gordon, touchdown!